all set? Okay. So I'll call the school committee to order for October 5th, 2017, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. And just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded and televised, so silence your mobile devices or anything else if you need to. And we'll start with public comment. Seeing none. And I don't know of any recognition this evening, so we're going to start with our very first 2017-2018 student report from our two new student representatives, Liam O'Carroll and Caitlin Dolly. Would you introduce yourselves?
You guys want to just introduce yourselves? And
I'm Liam O'Carroll. I'm a senior at North Andover High School. I'm the vice president of my class. I really like government. We're both involved with student government, so I think this is a really unique opportunity to be involved, like firsthand with it.
I'm Caitlin Dolly. I'm a junior at the high school. I'm in student council, as Liam said. I'm the historian. I'm also the historian of the Drama Guild. And I'm just really interested in learning more about kind of what's going on here, and I'm really excited to be here, so thank you.
thank you again.
That's fantastic.
Anything new and exciting going on at the start of the school year? How's Mr. Jackson doing?
He's doing a pretty good job. He's transitioned pretty well.
All right.
Happy we're going to do together.
I mean, Spirit Week's coming up
Yep.
next week, so that'll be fun, especially with the big rally at the end of the week. We have some fun little games planned throughout the week during lunches, so we're hoping for some participation from all the classes, so here's
Awesome.
hoping.
Sports teams are doing really well.
Yep, they are.
So good fall.
Yeah.
They're
That's
also
good, that's
very
good.
busy fundraising. I've been up for various things so far, so I know that that's a big activity that you all do, so I know that's a lot of work. Thank you. Are the elections finished for all the students for the year? I know don't freshmen and sophomore classes have elections?
Those were
Yes.
3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, they've already happened, and we have our freshman officers selected.
Great. Very good.
That's the update.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
All
guys
right.
for being here.
Awesome
Appreciate
job.
it.
Thank
We
you.
look forward to seeing you on the next meeting, which is October 19th.
Awesome.
If you want to go study, you can.
Yes.
Okay, thank you guys so much.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, moving on to the consent agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting from September 21st, 2017. We have a motion to approve the minutes.
Move to approve the minutes as presented in the packet.
I'll second that.
Motion by Ms. Vitsky-Lynch, second by Mr. McDevitt. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 5-0. Okay, and so for a chair's report, big thing I have to report really is that I've been very busy focusing on the next steps for the superintendent search process, and I spent a lot of time looking at what was done in the last search, and I can tell you a tremendous amount of work was done and a lot of great work, that some of which is attached in the packet here that we'll be talking about a little later in the agenda. But I also appreciate the comments that people have reached out to us with through email and otherwise, and for the already 33 names of people who have put their names in the hat to be part of the process. So thank you for that. That's all I have. Dr. Price?
Yeah, just a few things. I just want to remind everybody of the PTS Hall of Fame ceremony on October 25th. It'll be a wonderful opportunity for us to recognize our professional status teachers, our tenured teachers, those who are in their 4th consecutive year here in North Andover, and also to recognize Ed Martin, who is the Hall of Fame recipient. So that'll be a great night. It's at the rotunda of the library of the Stevens. If you haven't noticed, our central office is looking quite impressive with all the wonderful flowers and mulch. I would like to recognize our own John Mullen for taking it upon himself to make it look beautiful out there, and then a special shout out to Peter Breen for donating the mulch. he's amazing with the mulch that he delivers around this town to various locations. So thank you very much to them. Many of us just came over from geography night over at NAMS. It was a great evening. Bob Proya does an amazing job, and I think it's just incredible how he pulls that off every year, I would say. And then the last thing is tomorrow night at the football game, which is home against Billerica, we are going to be recognizing Eric Duffy, who at halftime.
Yeah, Eric's at Harvard. He's a freshman at Harvard, first year at Harvard, as they say there. And they'll be recognizing him as the Gatorade Athlete of the Year.
It's a big deal.
There'll be a ceremony. And the other nice thing is the bands from the middle school will also be playing with the high school band at halftime.
That is such a fun night.
Yeah.
Creators come up.
So it's going to be a fun night tomorrow night over at North Andover High School. Game starts at 7. We think halftime will be about 8. So there you go. That's all I have. Although we've been seeing we did an awesome walkthrough of the middle school with our leadership team this week. It was wonderful, really looking at student-centered and student-engaged classrooms. And one thing that we made a change this year is we've talked to you guys about our walkthroughs and the leadership team going through. We've shared that. This year we actually expanded the group to include facilitators of collaborative inquiry, lead teachers, and also department coordinators at the elementary, middle, and high school. So bringing teachers on the walkthroughs with us, and it was an excellent decision to expand and have the teachers with us. It was a really great morning on Monday. Really, 2 hours of really focused on teaching and learning and looking at instruction and talking about instruction at the middle school. It was excellent. So, good beginning to the week.
Quick question, this may be covered in the building update, but any update on NAMS with the state?
So we won't know anything until the word on the street is if we get a call, that's good news. If we get a letter, it's not good news. That'll be probably beginning of December.
Okay.
It kind of goes into the black hole once they've come and visited us. So we won't know anything till the beginning of December.
Okay.
And then even if we get to move forward, it's just we are invited to apply.
Correct. Right.
So you're still looking 6 or 7 years from that moment.
Right. Okay.
Just so people know, but fingers crossed.
That's great. Anything else? Okay.
No, you're next.
So we're going to move on to old business. First item is the second read. Oh, I'm sorry. Gosh, the big item. I almost skipped over that. Sorry, the school building committee update. We really want to hear that. So yes, please do that.
So as Dr. Price just mentioned, I think NAMS is on hold. We've done it. I think we made a great pitch on that. We'll find out end of November, early December on that, what our next steps are going to be. Not a huge update as far as the building committee goes. We have a meeting coming up on the 18th, and at that point we will vote to submit put the bid out. The architect is putting the bid documents together right now. So that whole thing's going along, relatively smoothly. We had a meeting this past Monday with the town manager and the architect and the OPM, along with the site engineer. And that site has some tricky aspects to it. So we're working on that with him right now. He brought his team together. We're looking at obviously a temporary plan for when the building is being built. As Ms. Mabley knows, there's a big project. The middle school fields project is going to be going on almost simultaneously. So we have we're taking the long view as well as the short term, trying to figure out short-term solutions to the traffic issue up there. We have to work very closely with Mass Highway because we're going to be moving the entrance, the point of egress there on 125. But I think everyone feels like we're still on schedule for next August, and obviously a lot of that will depend on when the bids come back in November. So we'll go out to bid mid-late October. By mid-late November, we should have the bids back. Our architect feels like this is, as far as modular project goes, this is a very, it's a good-sized project. We should get some good bids on it. But time will tell on that. So our next meeting is the 18th, and again, those are open to the public. It'll be here at 5 o'clock on October 18th. That's about it. Anything else you want to add, Jen, Jim?
Yeah, I
on
mean,
that?
I think the only thing I would add is we sent out a pretty extensive update on last Friday to the entire community, both teachers and the entire the whole school community. We put it on the our website. We actually have a web page dedicated to this with the meeting minutes from the school building committee, the actual plans that you can download. We also have it linked to the town website. So we're really trying to share as much information as possible about this project. People, I think, appreciated that we took the time to write about it and let people know what's going on. We will continue to do so. It's not going to be on any regular basis, but I would say it's going to happen, at the key points. So I think the next time we'll do an update is once the bids come back, and then once we know kind of the schedule. So it's not going to be like monthly, because it's really just going to depend on the key benchmark times. So we will continue to do that. But that website that, again, our new web designer did an excellent job putting together, will be updated as soon as we have any additional information. And it's worth looking at if you haven't looked at it. It's got a lot of information on it.
And I just want to reiterate, we're not doing this alone. The town is with us every step of the way.
Yes.
The assistant town manager, the building facilities director, they're coming to our meetings. They understand that this, overlaps into a town project as well. So they have been very helpful and very engaged.
So through something like that, do you think that people who would likely bid on this already have a preview and are already in the back of their minds getting their group together of who would
It's tough to
write
tell.
that up?
It's tough to tell because obviously our OPM has gotten some, estimates, and so she gets those estimates from talking to some bid, but not all the bidders.
Right.
I mean, a lot has to do with what else they got going on, and I think I mentioned in our last meeting, from what's going on down south between Houston and Florida, there'll be some construction demands. So those two major, catastrophes could impact the bid quite dramatically. So we won't know till we go to bid, but we're still on schedule as far as that goes.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
I would just like to say, I've heard from a lot of people how much they really appreciated, the architectural drawing of, what it's going to look like and the design of it, and just, I think so many people have kind of been like, okay, what is going there? How's it going to look? And I really feel that answered a lot of questions in the community. So that was great.
It's good to hear, because I know people just expect there to be activity up there.
Right.
And the reality is, as you all know, these modules are built, probably been built someplace in western Pennsylvania. And then they ship them here, and I think they said they get delivered and they're put together within 3 days. But then there'll be the internal work at that point, but they literally drop them within a week. They're assembled. So if everything goes as scheduled, you won't see any kind of activity up there probably till March, and that'll be on schedule. So
It's mind-boggling.
things are happening.
Right. But that's helpful and I think we probably will need to state that every time, because I think that's helpful for people to
Yeah.
digest. Great. Thank you, guys. Thanks for all the work the committee's doing. I know you all are meeting quite a bit, so appreciate it. Now we are going to talk about going on a Spanish exchange trip.
All of
Second
us?
reading. If we could, that would be great.
Open meeting.
So again, we talked about this the last time. This is the second reading. There weren't any significant questions about this one, so I have nothing more to report.
So I will move as presented in the packet to approve the Spanish exchange trip.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McDuffett, seconded by Ms. Lynch. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sounds like a great tradition to continue, so appreciate that. It's great. So next topic is about the Superintendent Search Committee and the process. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I spent a lot of time and with a lot of help from Ms. Zagari, so thanks, Bev, for all the help you gave me, looking at the documents for the committee that both Helen and Holly were on in the past, all the work that they did 3 years ago to come up with a process, and that involved speaking to the town, teachers, getting a lot of input, having focus groups to find out what direction we wanted to go in. And you'll see in the packet, and it's attached for people at home, the criteria. Where's all that? Here it is. Superintendent qualifications that they boiled down. This, again, is dated October 2014, so you can see that. But during our discussion, we're going to want to look at this further and see what tweaks we might need to make, changes to adjust this for the next situation, the next search that we're starting now. the good news is, I think that a tremendous amount of work was done, and I can't imagine that we need to go through that level of research and outreach again, because so much was done, and I don't think that that much needs to be changed here. Additionally, there was an article that was published, which is also in here, about the Woburn search they're starting, and the field director of the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, Mike Gilbert, talked a lot about the fact that it's a really good idea to make an internal search before going out for an open search for a new superintendent. And so I spent some time reading that. I thought it was pretty impactful, a lot of things he had to say, and I had a conversation with him. I talked to him at length as well. So I'd like to suggest we take a little time here to talk about that idea. Do we consider doing an internal search before, during, and an open search if necessary? Any comments?
So I'll say a couple of things. First of all, I just want to say that we're well within our authority to appoint someone if we choose to, or have an internal search or an external search. That's all within our decision making, and I think that we should consider all those options. We heard this as well when we went to the training for school committee members. Holly and I were there on the 16th of September. I remember because that was my son's birthday. But that was also talked about at that time. So this wasn't new information, that looking internally is a good idea. And reviewing what we said last time, which this is a pretty awesome document, I have to say. I don't remember at the time thinking like, we are making an awesome document. I remember thinking like, we need to work on this grammar, and we need to, we have to make compromises about what we're saying. But looking at it with fresh eyes, a couple years later, I feel, again, I'm biased, but I think our process was excellent. The way that we had school building meetings with teachers, we had open meetings at the high school with community members, and we had people who had no children in the school district, whose children weren't old enough for schools, whose children had graduated from schools, whose children were in the middle of the process. So I really do feel like just a little bit of that history is important for people to have. But when I was reviewing this, the one thing that that jumped out at me was the team building skills. And on the team building skills, it says to move an organization like a school system in new directions, it takes capable and motivated leadership team. So I think the fact that we've moved significantly in a new direction with our strategic plan and with the things that we've accomplished and the things that we hope to accomplish, that we have a capable and motivated leadership team. So I think it would be good for us to look at those team members that are available in our district who may be able to continue to move us forward. So those are my initial thoughts. And editing-wise, I would just add the word "our new directions," so that there's no expectation that I'm looking at the qualifications page, and under team building, the first sentence, it says to move school systems in new directions. I don't think we need a new leader that comes in here. Yes, we need someone with vision. Yes, we need someone with initiative. But we want them to have our vision, and we want them to follow the initiative we have in place. So that's why I would say our new directions. So for me, I think there's great wisdom in looking at who's available to us right here, who's been part of the change and the progress we've made in the last couple of years. I can't say things in few words, sorry.
No, there's no need for few words. We're not on any time crunch here. Any other thoughts at this point?
Just to kind of pick up on Helen's points, which were very well made, and I agree with her sentiments. I think it's important, any organization. I mean, it's silly to think that any business or any nonprofit organization just immediately goes to an external search. I think it's important to look internally if people feel we're heading in the right direction. I think 3 years ago now, we wanted to have a culture change. We wanted to have a shift, and we brought in Dr. Price, and I think generally speaking, I know this group is happy with the direction the district is going in, and I would, more than guess that the public is very happy with the way the direction of the school system's going. I'd like to think there's at least one, if not a few, internal candidates that could, continue that. So I'd like to obviously, first look internally to keep that continuity going, but also, as I think the article, I think Mike Gilbert's quoted in this article, and I know you talked to Mike Gilbert from the School Community Association, we're not going to get a great search done if a lot of people aren't going to apply if they think there's an internal candidate already. I mean, that's just common sense. So, and I think also he said there's going to be 50 to 60 openings across the state this year. So
I do have a brief list
yeah.
that I can share in a minute.
So I
This year.
yeah, this year. So in a lot of ways, the message is, we're not choosing superintendents. Superintendents are choosing the district to go to because it's really a buyer's market, so to speak. So I think I'd like to talk about having an internal search process first, posted internally, and if someone rises to the top, which I hope that would happen, it would, and if that doesn't happen, I think we'll just make the external search a better process. So I'd like to see us do an internal search first.
I don't disagree that we're in a great spot. I think we're really lucky. My concern is that this is the most important job in the district, and I feel like there's a reason why there's a process for a full search. Dr. Price, maybe you could share with us why we did full searches for the high school and sergeant, because I'm interested in your thoughts behind that, because to me it looked like the cream rose to the top there, and the process does work, and I feel we should trust the process, and I think we owe it to the community to do this right, just for the integrity. I think we have great candidates. I'm not saying that already, so I think we're starting from a good spot, and it can only get better. I don't see the harm in opening up a full search. I just think we need to do our due diligence.
I also would be in favor of just doing an external search, not doing an internal. When we hired again recently, within principals and even assistant principals, we happened to get internal candidates that were excellent. But I think we had the opportunity to compare them against peers out there in the educational field and know and understand without any hesitation that we hired the best. And I think we owe that to the community. And I think if we go through an internal process and we don't, for example, pick somebody internally and then we go to an external process, if somebody who's on the internal happens to reapply or continue in the process, then I think that creates a different perception. So I feel like that's going through 2 rounds of vetting, conceivably, and I just think that we owe it to the community to do a full search.
Okay.
I think we in the past have been not as transparent as we should have been, and there have just been quote-unquote appointments that have been made of who some of the new leadership would be within the district, and I think it was internal and internal only, and I think doing it that way just does not put the right perception out there.
I guess I just take issue with, I think having an internal search is a transparent process, and to suggest otherwise, does disservice to, I think, the people who have served this district for a long, long time. I like the way the direction we're heading in. I don't need to. I thought 3 years ago we needed to reshuffle the deck. In fact, I got appointed to this position in the school committee right during the middle of it. But my interest started with when I think Hutch at the time had said he was going to resign. I wanted to be in the superintendent search committee. Retire. Sorry. Retire. Did I say resign? Sorry. I apologize for that, Hutch. But anyways, I mean, that was my interest. And I still think, I felt at the time that we had so much turnover in the school system. There was constant leadership I don't want to use the word turmoil, but there was not this constant, consistent leadership going on. I feel very confident that Dr. Price has set the tone going forward. There's 3 assistant superintendents sitting next to us. There could be other people in the district, but we have a great leadership team in place. You know, when Steve Jobs passed away, but I mean, Tim Cook was at Apple. I mean, Jeff Immelt just stepped down from GE. They didn't go do a nationwide search for the next, CEO of those companies. I think, generally speaking, if there's a strong company going and it's going in the right direction, your best bet is to look internally. And again, maybe you didn't mean it this way, but we will be serving the community very well, in my opinion, if we look internally first. And maybe that person's not there. Maybe that's not the case. But I also think that any questions or any internal candidate, we're going to have a whole bunch of different questions for that person as opposed to an external candidate. It's going to be a different process altogether. You're going to be comparing apples to oranges if one of the assistant superintendents or one of the principals in this district applies for the job as opposed to someone from Western Mass or Central Mass. So I like to at least examine our internal candidates first.
Go ahead.
I think one of the reasons, or one of the things that we can think about is momentum matters. And when we're transitioning, people get into a wait-and-see attitude. Let's wait and see if it's going to be somebody from here who knows what we're doing and how we're doing it. We've got new leaders at several of our new buildings. We're going to have more new leaders at new leaders in a new building next year, as well as new leaders at the middle school. So who applies for that middle school job? Who's going to name that middle school principal? Who's going to support our new leaders? I think those people want to know if it's going to be our plan and our vision that our next superintendent's doing. And when we say we're doing an internal search, I think it's a further commitment to the process that we set in front of us with the strategic plan. So I think people are going to be less wait and see about that. When we talk about the number of searches that are going to be going on around Massachusetts, I assume that we have competent leaders from this district who will be thinking about those other positions. And the one thing we can control here is timing and a commitment to continuing with our plan here. So I think it will make a difference to those people who would be interested in serving as superintendent here or elsewhere. So, again, I agree with Mr. Cerisi that an internal search, I think, puts us in the best position to move ourselves forward with the plan that we have in front of us.
Can I ask why we did full searches?
Yeah, sure. So 2 things. I think the market is slightly different for principals. I want to just kind of, in terms of even number of candidates and process, I feel like the market is very different for principals. So I want to kind of put that forward on that. And I think everyone would agree with that comment. I think in both cases, I felt, and again, this is me, I felt that it was important for the internal candidates, both of whom were very strong, to go through an external process and then been given that kind of level of you were the best internal and externally. I was not, in either case, frankly, worried about losing either of them. I think we did the process early enough. They were, we were kind of ahead of the game in most of those cases. A little different at Sargent, at the high school we were, because we knew. But, I felt like, kind of as I did the calculus, I felt like they were going to stick with us through it, and we had no risk in terms of not having them be able to rise to the top. I also think in both cases, it's interesting, both of them in very different places. Miss Leahy had only been an assistant principal for 3 or 4 years before, right? And so I think I felt that it was really important for her to show her school, a school that I felt really wanted to get behind and move. I think in that case, for me, frankly, and be very respectful, and I was pretty clear with this, is that I felt that Sargent needed to go in a slightly different direction, and I wanted, if we hired an internal person, to have people feel like that was possible, and so that she could really demonstrate that through the process was important to me. And I think, at the high school, just for context, I had made the decision to not put Mr. Jackson in as the interim. And so I had said, because we were going to do a full search, and once I had made that decision, I really needed to stick with it. So those are the kind of the context of those two. I think the market is different. And I also think that in each of those cases, there was really strong motivation for the district and for the buy-in for those folks. And I think in both cases, I'm going to use Ms. Picard's language. I think that it was not just about maintaining momentum. It was about changing it slightly, if not a little bit more dramatically. Thank you.
And if I could just pick up on that, I don't think I want to change the direction right now. I want to keep the same. I think we're on a good course right now. And if we bring someone in from the outside, if we don't find the right internal candidate, we have to go outside. That person's probably gonna, could change direction on us. I also, I don't think I'm out of school by saying, I know at least one of our assistant superintendents has applied and has interviewed for other jobs. We're obviously losing a great leader. We've all think the world of Jen and the job she's done here for the last 2 years. I don't want to go through a situation where I lose maybe 2 or 3 of our top people. I think it's actually incumbent upon us to look internally first. I think we would not be doing the district its due. We wouldn't be giving the district due by not looking internally first. So those are my sentiments, obviously.
So I was exactly where Ms. Lynch was at the beginning. We have a process. It's worked very nicely over the last year and a half. That's the logical next step. That's what we should do. But then, honestly, the article had a big impact on me, and I started thinking a lot about what, and through my conversation as well, what Mr. Gilbert had to say. And then I made a little pros and cons list, and was surprised to find that there were so many pros, and a lot of them have already been mentioned here, why we should look internally first. And actually, in my professional career, in the 2 different industries I was in, it was standard required policy that you had to post a job internally for 2 weeks before you could even let anybody externally apply. So there is precedent that that's done. But I'm concerned about momentum, wanting to keep that. But related to that, the momentum has not been just Dr. Price's momentum. It's been this leadership team's momentum. And they've been part of building this plan. And so they do have buy-in. Hopefully we could find someone who would buy into our plan as well. But that is a risk. I also don't think that an internal candidate is just going to execute, no offense to you, Dr. Price's plan, but is going to take the plan that we've been working on and hopefully add some inquiry and look to, okay, we've done a lot of these things well. Some of the stuff on our goals we're going to look at are ready to fall off after next year, but we need to add some new things. And I think a totally new leader could bring that, but someone who's already been part of this and knows our district so well as to what's going well, what's improving, what needs help, would be able to identify, the 2.0 of what we've been doing right now. The hiring of the NAMS principal to me is a colossal hire in this district. Anybody new coming in would have the benefit of working with Dr. Price to identify that person and help hire that. But someone who really knows our middle school well, the people who've been here, I think that's a plus in that process. What else did I have? Just the culture, the district culture, the beliefs, the values that our families have here. Obviously, we'd be able to interview any candidate, internal or external, about that. But people here already know what is important and where we're looking to grow. So much work was done last time, and I'm impressed with that. I think we have some tweaks to do here. And the best thing I think that Mike Gilbert said to me when we talked was, because I was concerned, and I think you said this, Holly, that we won't have anybody else to compare internal candidates to. But what he said was you should never really compare them to each other too much. You should be comparing them against what you're looking for, the qualifications. and we could certainly do that internally at the outset. I also honestly like the idea of limiting distractions to the work that we have to do, and while it wouldn't be done by the people carrying on our day-to-day work, it still would be a distraction for our committee and people in the community who are working on this. The cons are obviously, I like the process. I feel I was concerned about not continuing with that, but I know we are fully within our rights, and it has been done successfully in other districts locally. And I know that we always think, well, there might be another person out there that we don't know of yet who could really wow us. And sure, that's possible. But it sounds like a lot of people have been moving around in districts a lot lately, so there's not been a superstar out there per se. And I am concerned that internal candidates would be then weighing anything we might offer them against some other districts as well at a certain point if we were to go through the full process. Just to mention, the districts that are currently open, that list that I have is Oxford, Wilmington, Hopkinton, Haverhill, Peabody, Newburyport, Woburn, Sudbury, Berlin-Boylston. Some of those are already interviewing right now, and their searches are open.
Lexington last night.
In Lexington last night. Okay. Yeah, and Sudbury was just added this morning. So those are a lot of districts that are open. And so we're going to be also competing on a timeline. So weighing all of that, I went from very much liking to roll with the process we've been doing to feeling that it doesn't hurt our process to have an internal look first.
I would disagree. I think the difference between us and a private business is we represent the people in our community, and I think to not involve the community in this very important decision is, I don't want to say negligence on our part, but I don't think it's best practice. I think, as Mr. McDevitt said, like, you guys want to know you're the best. You want to know you're the best, and the only way to know you're the best is to rise to the top as compared to other candidates. I would think that's more satisfying if it were me, and I really would like to involve the community. We had 33 people apply. That means they're interested.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, I know it's within our rights, but I don't think the 5 of us should be making this decision alone.
Don't you think there are ways we can involve the community
Yeah, I was
in
gonna say,
internal
that's a
search?
big assumption that we don't involve the public. I think, easily, and I don't know what it is right now, but I think to have an internal search, I mean, to utilize those 30, 35 people who have expressed interest already, we should utilize them in some way. I don't know what that is yet. I think we should possibly discuss that, but I'm not saying exclude the public, but have no illusions. The 5 of us were elected. This is the #1 reason we're elected. This is our responsibility. And I want community input. I want people to call me and weigh in, and people already have. And that's formulating my position right now. I'm not doing this in a vacuum. So people do weigh in. There's no question about that. Go
ahead.
No, I was just saying, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to post the position of a North Andover superintendent internally, effective immediately. And I would also move that we form a subcommittee consisting of yourself and another one of your appointees to come up with what the internal process is going to look like, and to report to us back on our next meeting, October 19th, what we're going to do, how we're going to actually do that. And we can discuss that further, but I'd like to make a motion at least to post it internally and form a subcommittee to figure out what the internal process is going to be.
So I would second that.
So there's a motion by Mr. Teresi, sorry, not McDevitt, clearly not McDevitt, Mr. Teresi, and then a second by Ms. Lynch. Any other? Ms. Gosh, completely opposite. Ms. Picard, gosh, clearly, I know.
We both have H's. It's okay.
Yes, I know.
We just have big eyebrows.
So, further discussion.
I respect Andrew and Holly's disagreement on this, and I hope that even if this vote comes down, that they would obviously help weigh in on how to make an internal process the best it could be.
I know where this is going to go. I mean, I just think that even for the candidates who internally are going to apply, I think that they're going to look at the vision that we have for where the district is and the community, and I think all of the feedback that we have on the strategic plan has been great. But I would love to have the opportunity for somebody to look at that with a different lens, conceivably, and know that they are the best candidate to kind of come into the process. Even if it is somebody internal, for them to know that they are truly the best person to lead this town.
I agree.
You know, and I would just say, like, I think we're all being very brave and very candid and very thoughtful about this. And I think it's reasonable that adults thinking through a process would come to different positions on what they think is the best next step. So I really appreciate the thoughtfulness that everybody has, you know, so far shared. It's difficult, and it's not, you know, that's why they're paying us the big bucks, because we're ready to make hard decisions together. You know, together.
One of my favorite sayings in politics is it's easy to do the right thing. Knowing what the right thing is, that's the tough part about it. So I can appreciate where you two are coming from.
The best candidate will win in the long run, and I just think it's better to go through the process, which we've started under Dr. Price, and not abandon it now just because we're in a rush.
That we're what? I'm sorry?
In a rush.
I don't think we're in a rush.
I don't think we're in a rush.
There are external factors that need to be considered. If this was going to happen just in a vacuum, and I didn't have to worry about, you know, other people leaving the district, I mean, that's one of my biggest considerations. And I don't think that, you know, if we could get this done, you know, inside of a month, I think that is a plenty of time to examine it and then still go out and do an external candidate if no one internally rises to the top.
All right, any other discussion? I definitely am one who doesn't like split decisions like this. Very much dislike
Share
it.
votes last.
That's what I thought. That's really hideous. Yes, okay, so roll call
Motion is
vote.
for internal.
In terms of the motion is to post the job internally first, you know, and see if that yields anything, and then to form a subcommittee to come up with a process for, if it were to be voted, run as an internal candidate through a process which would involve external input, community input.
And I would just say if this motion passes, I think we should hopefully just lead into that conversation about people's ideas about including those people who have already expressed interest.
Roll call vote. Mr. Trissy.
Aye.
Mr. McDevitt.
No.
Ms. McCard.
Aye.
No.
And I'm going to say aye.
Good too.
Which I don't like, but that's not my choice.
We're almost always 5-0, so.
Yeah, no, and
No, I think we had a 2-1-2 vote last year. That was a little interesting as well. We've had votes that aren't always, and that's fine.
Right?
That was about the energy thing.
Oh,
That was the bleachers, yeah. Getting on the bleachers.
Real important stuff.
So I don't know if people have ideas going forward, but obviously there's several, obviously 30 plus people who have expressed interest in serving, and how to utilize those people and their input. I mean, I think the work that was done, I mean, even if we did go right to the external search committee, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Holly and Helen, but you spent the first, several weeks designing these qualifications, which I think are stellar. I don't think we need to do all that again. I don't think we need that's my opinion. I'd love other input on that, but I feel pretty strong that these qualifications are exactly what we're looking for still.
I think that they're spectacular. I think there are some small tweaks that would need to be made, and I think this is one place where we could directly invite the 33, and that they still have till tomorrow, so there could be 90 as of tonight, people who are interested in participating in this process, but this could certainly be one way that people could give input. I think another way is, the standard process is to have a public interview, and we would need interview questions, and I think suggestions from the community as to what they would want to hear from any internal candidates would be useful as well.
I don't see any reason to modify the qualifications. So, I think if the subcommittee is going to start, this is what I would put together as a very strong starting point. The only thing that's not necessarily in here specifically is the strategic plan. We mentioned in the collaborative skills, and it sounds, trivial, but it was really important to the subcommittee and the community that we had the building respectful communities. We had raised values, and so many people said this is part of who we are, and somebody coming in needs to embrace this, and they need to understand that we're part of that. And I think our strategic plan, is really where we have given Dr. Price and the leadership team their directive and their motivation and momentum to go in. And I think we need to make sure that is in here as part of the adoption.
Okay.
So that would be my only, let's make sure we add it in.
Okay. Do you want to write up your thoughts on that?
Sure, I can get them to you.
Okay.
Sure.
What other considerations, how else could the community be involved? What do you think about the idea of submitting questions for interview questions? It would still, you'd need a smaller group then take the questions and craft them into something more
Yeah, I think that's
useful.
I think that's important. I think that there are questions that we asked last time that they could use as a reference if they were interested. But I think probably a group could come up with appropriate questions to ask.
I couldn't find it, and I don't remember if I got it electronically or if it was just handed out, but there was a document of, I don't want to say sample questions, but they were triggers on different things, and they were all on, they were categorized, and I probably have it somewhere. I don't think I have it electronically, but I can reach out to Mr. Limpert and see if he has it or if any of the other members.
Well, Ms. Zagar, Bev gave me about 190 documents. So
Okay,
I might have
be in
missed
there.
it.
It might be in there.
So I will look for that to see. And also the MASC, they charge for a lot of things that they do, but there are a lot of things that are free in the process. And I imagine some basic questions. To me, I would imagine we need to cover certain key areas through our interview. So if they even gave us a framework of the key areas to hit, we can tweak them to make them more North Andover appropriate. When that's maybe what you all did last time. I'm not sure.
One of the things we've changed in the hiring process here in North Andover is a performance-based task for every hire that we've done. So when we have teachers come, I require that they do a demo lesson. We've done things where Donna had to review some IEPs prior to being hired, and it's something that I think has really changed the practice in the district. And as we think about, making sure that schools are a fractal nature, what you do at the top is also what you want done throughout the organization. It would just potentially to kind of model what we've really, a change of practice that we've embraced within the school system. Is there some type of performance-based task, that you could think of, something in writing or something that would be done? I just think that kind of demonstrates from the school committee perspective that this change is something that we too embrace. And because I think our principals have found that to be a great part of the hiring process. In many places they hire teachers who they've never seen teach. It just seems crazy. So is there some type of performance-based task that could be part of the process that then sends the message to the rest of the school community, that that's an important part of hiring in North Andover? I think that might be something that would be a good message for us to send.
Well, and we're going to have, some documents. People are going to be expressing their interest in the position through an application.
Right.
We're going to need somebody to vet those documents, to look at, what the resumes say, with the, whatever documents we have them
right.
submit.
That was part of the motion.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
Would the subcommittee
You and
that,
someone else?
would the subcommittee that's involved, I'm talking about the community,
Right.
would they be doing the initial screening and interviewing?
Well, see,
And all that.
that's well, my question is, do we appoint the full subcommittee for the larger search, for the internal search? If you want to look at the document I had in here to discuss.
Part of it may come down to how many people apply.
Right.
I mean, there could be 20, or there could be 2,
Mm-hmm.
Or 0.
or 0.
Mhm. Well, could absolutely be 0 too. So I had in here for us to discuss the categories we want to make sure we covered in a team of a search committee. Is that a process that we need to vet the internal applicants?
I think my motion was for you and another member of this board to meet and discuss that and come back with a recommendation on the 19th about what the process should be. That was my motion. So
Mhm.
I'm not sure about having, I mean, this list is long. I don't know if, it also depends on how people apply internally for the job too. You know?
Right.
So, anyways, I think it'd be helpful if you and whoever your appointee is to get together sooner rather than later. I would absolutely utilize the 30 or 35 people who already stepped forward in some way.
Right.
You know, and maybe it's just having a listening session with them. Invite them to come, you know, some evening or some late afternoon and pick their brains. I know, you know, some of the people that applied, you know, have incredible qualifications, and some are just dedicated parents and community leaders that want to be involved in this. You know, it's one of the top 2 decisions that in the superintendent, town manager, the 2 biggest positions in the town. So they want to weigh in.
Right. No, absolutely. And I have to say, an exciting part about the 33 I received so far, several of them don't even have kids in the system yet and are very interested in being involved and learning more, but also sharing. Then there are people who are veterans who, you know, have seen the process and want to know what's going on. So,
So
Our viewing audience tonight.
I would,
exactly right.
I would ask for clarification because we suggest the motion was to post the position immediately internally. So when we post the position, we need to have a return by date. So I think that we can't wait until October 19th to decide when the return by date is, you know, to get this whole thing started. So I would be reticent to wait 2 more weeks before we make, you know, significant steps.
Well, I would imagine that this subcommittee would meet and have a good idea when we get back on the 19th of how the process is going to outline. But I agree with your point about we got to have a date when people need to apply by. I mean, today's the 5th.
Right. I was looking at a calendar here.
The 13th
Almost
is
2 weeks.
Right, and I was saying we're coming up also on a long weekend, so there's nothing happening Monday. A couple of things we could do. We could.
I think you know, October 16th. That gives them 2 weekends if they're going to put together a resume. I'm sure they have resumes already teed
right.
up.
Yes.
I think Monday the 16th is more than enough time. And this isn't, I'm sure any internal candidate's been thinking about this already. I mean, she's announced it 2-3 weeks ago now that she was leaving. I don't think it's going to come as a shock. So I hope it wouldn't be at least.
So-
We can have an application process.
Right.
I mean, so
That-
we
so we need to talk about
officially
that.
opened that, and there is no application.
Well, that's why I think we need to talk about that now before we go off this topic. So I first asked Dr. Price, do you think that 2 weeks is a reasonable turnaround time to ask for internal candidates?
We're talking about a week and a half.
So, first of all, I think, first of all, in terms of the application, we do have a standard application process here through AppleTrack. So it would be a cover letter, a resume, and then the standard qualifications.
Okay.
So I don't think that's an impediment to timing. I think you could just ask for that standard information. I don't remember doing anything differently when I applied other than that. So I think that was I applied just like everybody else. And then the other thing is, in terms of timing, I think you guys can just decide what the process is. I think somebody internally, I think, has been thinking about it since I announced 2 weeks ago. And I don't see that the time would be an impediment to having somebody. A few extra days is not going to be, well, I would have applied if there were a few extra days. I think if you want to be the superintendent, that's what I'm saying.
When you're applying externally, you're obviously putting the application so you can get an interview. Any internal candidate, I'm guessing, is probably going to get an interview now. You know, so I think that it's not a lot to ask, and it is 11 days. You know, I don't think that's a lot to ask. That if there's internal candidates, let us know within 11 days, and you know.
I would even say Friday the 13th.
I think I would put it out for 2 weeks. I mean, I think that's standard out in the industry. I don't see,
So-
we're not even meeting again for
Till
another 2 weeks.
So that would be, so they would be due
you
by
know,
the 19th.
Due by the, I'd say either the 19th or the 20th, you know, because they're not really even finding out until tomorrow, so.
Yeah.
It's not like we're gonna start interviewing on the 19th.
Right.
I think some of them are finding out right now.
Hmm?
I think some of them are finding out right now. That we're posting this. You said they're not going to find out until tomorrow. I'm like,
Oh, well, depends if they're watching.
You know, the one thing I would just process-wise for you guys is, if you did the 19th at, say, 4 or 5 o'clock, at least we would be able to tell you on the 19th, and when you had your next discussion, how many people you were talking about.
That's true.
I mean,
That's fair.
that, and I
That's
think,
fair.
so
That's a good point.
my suggestion would be that, you know, as the person who applied at 11:58 the day your application closed, I respect people who go up to the end, but you might want to just do it like 5 o'clock on the 19th, and then when we're sitting here, we won't use names obviously, but I could tell you, you've had 2 applications, you've had 7 applications, you've had 0. And it would, if you had 0, for instance, you'd want to know that when you're having the conversation.
Right.
Yeah, well, because it would completely change the course
So
of the
I
process.
would think you would
I
want to
think
know
that makes
that
sense. I didn't think of it that way.
So if you did 5 o'clock on the 19th, I could tell you that
I'm
evening.
good with that.
That-
So
sounds good.
it would technically be open tomorrow until the 19th.
5 o'clock.
At
Any
5
other
o'clock.
comment on that? Okay.
But while that's going on, obviously, your subcommittee, Madam Chair, would meet and discuss how this is going to unfold after the applications are accepted.
Right. Well, it seems to me that there are a couple different factors in that. And one is if there's 1 or 2, I would imagine you would interview both, so you don't need anybody to vet their application. Maybe you would, but I can't, I don't know.
The only thing I would say is, with internals, I think you want to be really clear with the process, because someone might apply, and if they knew that the only process was going to be public, that might be something they would want to know before their names
Right.
are made public. So I
Mhm.
think that we want to be sensitive
That's a good
to
point
the
as well,
fact
right.
that you're applying within the district in which you work. If everyone's going to get an interview and be sitting here in front of television, you want to be thoughtful that
Right.
everyone wants that to happen. And so I think you want a process that is clear, and that you can then explain to the candidate before their name becomes public.
Right. Well, and that's a good piece of background for people watching who might not know that during a full open interview, you get a whole bunch of applications and it's all kept confidential. And until the committee puts their, 1 to 4 candidates forward for final interview, it's held private until those people are put forward, then it becomes public knowledge. And
And those
That's-
people have an opportunity to say, I don't want to be
Right.
in a pool of 5 candidates for this position.
right,
And,
and that's true externally and internally.
Right.
That happened last time.
Right.
Correct.
You guys recommended 4, and one withdrew. They didn't want their name to be public for whatever
Correct.
reason.
And I think Dr. Price mentioned last time that some people feel that a large pool like that is too large and they don't want to gamble and they'd rather.
I did that.
I think it's more of a concern. I mean, legit, we should do it that way, but that's obviously more of a concern for external candidates. I mean, I think, anyone who's applying internally, let's not kid ourselves. Everyone's going to know who's applying internally.
Right.
The word gets out.
Maybe. I mean, you never know. And so I just think you want to know what the process is and be
Right.
able to explain it to the candidates, and so that they can actively choose to engage whichever process you put forward. You just never know.
Correct.
No,
Yeah,
and,
you
I
never
mean,
know.
if we get 20 internal candidates, we don't want to have 20
Well, that's
public
why the-
interviews.
The
That's why
internal
there's a
search
committee.
committee.
Would
Yeah.
need to do that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a real concern.
Well, you can't make that assumption.
I'm making an assumption. I'm
Okay.
saying I think it's a real concern.
But I just would have clarity.
So, from what I'm hearing, it's open till the 19th. We'll hear on the 19th. We have X number of candidates. In the meantime, we would need some kind of a subcommittee to outline a process. Does that process, the questions would be, I guess, does that process involve a subcommittee interviewing first and then a public interview if that's deemed appropriate? The criteria, what have you, the questions, determining what the questions are going to be in advance. Like, what would a subcommittee work on?
So what we had already said was the subcommittee would work on questions, would review
With
the
input from the public.
Yeah, would review the qualifications, would determine a performance-based task for whatever candidates they bring forward. And then I think we would need to, I feel like we need to make a decision, like if there are, X number of candidates,
Only
the
put forth
subcommittee will
X number.
do preliminary interviews before we have public interviews.
And do you see a subcommittee of, looking at the list I had here, this size? Or a smaller subcommittee?
I think it deserves every level of scrutiny than it would get if it was an external candidate.
So can we go back to looking at these
Yep,
for a minute and get your input on, these are what I put forth here. So
Yep.
a committee would be of 14 people. The chair of the committee, another member of the school committee, someone from central office, someone from the leadership team, a member of the board of selectmen, a member from the community, and then this, it doesn't have to be, but I put out 4 teachers, hoping for coverage, 1 elementary, 1 middle, 1 high school, and somebody from special ed, same thing for parents.
Just expand special ed to be student services.
I beg your pardon, yes.
Thank
Okay.
you. Right,
Mm-hmm,
counselor.
mm-hmm.
so we had 2 public administrators on the committee last time. We had the chief of police, and we had Andrew Mailer.
Mm-hmm.
And to shrink that down to 1 person from the community, like that could be, a person who doesn't have children in school.
Right.
So I would extend that from maybe next to community, put 1 to 3 people with the understanding that, perhaps, I know we have Board of Selectmen on there as well.
We didn't have Board of Selectmen.
We did not
year.
last time, we didn't have.
Mayor got on last time because of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, and so what I was actually, that is a good reminder, I was thinking that this would be the committee, and Andrew Miller doesn't have time to go to the number of meetings I would imagine that we would have. I don't know how often he attended before.
Well, I think he came to all the interviews. That was,
He did not come to my interview.
He did not?
Yeah, he didn't.
And
He didn't
actually, I met with him privately
Right.
during the process.
Ah, yes.
which was
Thank you
the
for
turning-
reminding
Which
me.
was one of the major turning points for me in terms of
Coming here.
coming here. He was such a sales part of it. So I know that that's an internal process,
Right.
but I met with him individually for
Okay.
2 hours.
What I was gonna suggest is, once the committee puts forth X candidates, he would meet with those candidates, because I think he has to be part of the process, because that is a very important relationship that we have. Just like Jim has with the finance person in town, very important relationship. It would be helpful to have giving him an opportunity to interview the finalists. That's what I propose.
So one of the things we put, when we called out for this committee, we said it was a significant commitment,
Right.
and that was assuming we were doing an external full
Right.
search.
Mm-hmm.
How does that commitment change now? Because some people may not have applied because they thought it was too big a time
Right.
commitment.
Well,
And what's the time commitment we're looking at now?
it depends on, and I answered this question to someone before she sent in an application. I think it depends on how many people apply, how many people you have to vet in advance. Don't forget, if we do an internal search and for some reason we don't find anybody that we want to hire, then we're going to have to do an open search. And that would involve the same people. So until we know how many people apply, I don't know. But I see it as most of the work, like you guys had a lot of meetings because you had to get all the community input and all that sort of thing. I think a lot of that work is done here. I think that group can look at these criteria. I think have the internal, look at the resumes, have any internal interviews first, and then put forth the candidates. It would probably be less time, depending on
Would
other
assume
people.
So looking at our schedule, if we're going to have resumes coming back by the 19th, and then our next meeting after that is the 2nd of November, is that
Mhm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Could we anticipate ourselves being ready for public interviews on the 2nd of November?
I'll
On this
just
timeline,
reiterate, my motion was for our subcommittee to come up with this process, to figure this out. And I think these are all good ideas, and that's a great question, but to me, that's something that we could beat this around all night. I think you guys need to get in the weeds, and I hate to put all the burden, but I think that's what needs to happen.
I don't mind the burden, but I think coming back to what several people stated at the beginning, that this is one of the most important things we do in this job, this is the kind of conversation we should be having, I feel.
And I
if you
think
all
it makes
we
a
should stop
difference
it,
to, as you said, I mean, overnight, people have an opportunity to put their name in.
we can also extend the deadline if you think that that's viable. We can extend the deadline for sure.
I think it's fair. We've changed things now
Yeah.
tonight.
Just one point, November 2nd, I will not be here because I am chaperoning Nature's Classroom in Ocean Park, Maine, so,
It would be a nice night to interview people.
And then the next meeting after that would be the
I can get it for you.
17th,
14,
16th?
16th.
16th, probably.
Yep, 16th. I just looked at it, yep. So the deadline was originally tomorrow. We can extend that. Again, I'd like to have some work
I
done
don't
in the
think you need,
meantime.
with all due respect, I mean, you get 30 names, and you're gonna get, you got, what, 4 positions available? I think you're gonna find,
No, there are more people, the leadership team's applying, all these people are
no,
applying.
I thought you got 33 community members, parents to submit.
33 period. So some are teachers, a lot of parents.
Yeah.
I think you
some
can extend it, but I
leadership.
wouldn't extend it past Monday.
That's fine, the
Give them
weekend.
the weekend, that's.
Well,
that's-
Monday, how about Tuesday, because Monday's a holiday, so the 10th.
That's fine.
Is that all right?
Sure.
Sure.
16th to 10.
Again, Dr. Price, I don't mean to keep turning to you, but I feel like you're an outside thinker at this moment for us. Do you feel like that's enough information for people who would be interested in applying internally to understand what that is, what our process is?
We
That
don't
was,
have a
your
process.
suggestion was that they would need to know what our
So I
process
don't
was
think
gonna
it would
be.
matter for them to apply. I think for them to be able to have their name be made public, they would have to understand what the process is.
Okay, all right. So we're not making any names public on the 19th, and we
No.
can figure out more of the process as you
I
suggest.
just think it's important that they
Right.
understand that, because applying, they're gonna apply.
Right.
But, if there's 8 candidates, they need to know if their name's gonna be public in the 8,
Right.
right?
Right.
If they, just because 7 people
Right.
who work for this district will not be the next superintendent, so, or 8 will be 8, but I just think it's important.
Yeah, thank you.
Just to reiterate, Oxford, Hopkinton, Peabody, and Burlington, Boylston are already right now open and interviewing, and some of them are already interviewing people, so the process is underway. And that means even internal candidates are likely looking at that too. So I don't think we want to drag around for 2 months, because we still have to, if we decide we have to open the process, we need to get to that too, so.
Right. Then we're behind the 8 ball because those searches will be closed.
Yep, so. So we're gonna stick with having this internal search committee this size,
I say yes, yeah.
okay? All right, so, I need someone, well, then I will work on appointing this committee, after the 10th.
But you were gonna form a subcommittee,
But the subcommittee involves these people we just said, I thought.
Okay.
Doesn't
and
it?
someone else from this committee.
Right,
Right.
right, so I can announce that going forward.
Okay.
All right? Is that all right?
So when that is decided, will you share that?
I will share that, and I can share it out to the public as well. Is that, were you guys publicly posted as a committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, closes on the 10th. There are a lot of things to read through. And again, I'd like each of you to get a chance to look at the candidates as well. So hopefully announce that by the 13th then, which is what I've been telling everyone who's applied that.
Okay.
Do we
would
need
get
to
back by
vote on the
13th.
candidates as a group, or is that
I
something
think
you can
I
just do
appoint
it?
I can appoint the
Yeah,
committee,
no,
but I
she
certainly would
appoints
like your feedback, but ultimately I'll appoint the committee. All right?
Well, perhaps you and the other school committee person could determine the committee together.
Right, right, but I, again, would like everybody's input, so. Okay. All right, anything else on this topic? let's move on then to the goals, superintendent and school committee goals. We've looked at these extensively. Oops, sorry, but we just added some school committee only goals. And that we stalled a little bit because we had news to share. 2 weeks ago.
Number one new goal.
Yes, so in the red on your printout, and it's also online, is our 2 school committee goals. I really have to thank Ms. Picard, because she did a lot of work on this and did some research through the MASC as well as other districts to see the way they word some of these things. And so we have proposed here 2 school committee specific goals. And as just to reiterate, we share goals with the superintendent in a couple places. The superintendent has goals of her own, and then these would be goals of our own. The first is to hire a new superintendent to be under contract by July 1st, 2018. Second, to seek opportunities to communicate and engage with the community and to advocate for the district with residents and town leadership. Any comments or tweaking, or are we missing anything huge? Trying to remain focused on the year, on our priorities. No comments?
It seems like we've already done the first 2 bullets under one.
Close, right? I think we want to confirm that the qualification here we like. We're still establishing the process somewhat, but yeah, true. Anything else? I know that we've been looking at this for a while. Are we ready to vote on these goals for the year,
Yes.
before the year's over?
Let's table it for next week.
We got nothing else to think about, yeah.
Right.
So, so there are no comments on these goals, other than
No.
that we already done some of them, so yay for us.
I move that we accept the goals as
Second.
drafted.
Motion by Ms. Picard, second by Mr. Emphatic Teresi. Any other comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0, thank you.
Just like how you like it. 5-0.
It is. What'd you say? Yes, okay.
No, but we had big conversations about this too. You know,
Yes,
we're
we've
just
had a lot of
yeah.
conversations about that right now. All right, new business.
This is a technical, so as I said last time, there is a requirement in my contract that I send my resignation to you, registered mail with a return receipt request. I think most of you don't want to have to go to the post office and see that, and so all this is allowing me to hand you my resignation rather than sending it return receipt request to your homes.
That saves us a little bit of money, that's exciting.
I would have happily paid for it. But I just feel like,
That's what that
that's
is.
all this is.
So we don't have an opportunity to decline acceptance of the resignation, that's not what that's.
Yeah, what if this motion doesn't pass?
Then I will be going to the post office with return.
Oh, you don't stay?
And if we don't
Is
pick
that
it
all it
up, does
takes?
that mean it doesn't work?
That's right.
It's not effective?
That would make the last point.
Right, okay, thank you, so we can vote on that next time.
I move that we accept the resignation of superintendent.
It's only our first
first
reading,
reading.
we'd have to
Oh, we
first
can't.
vote to
Okay, never
suspend the
mind, sorry.
rules.
Right.
We'll talk about that.
You'd have to vote to move to suspend the rules.
Oh, I move to suspend the rules for a second reading. Is that how I do that?
That's
Right.
fine. I
Um,
think Bev can get that.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, or do you have to do a roll call on this, suspending the rules?
Yes, you
That's what I
do.
thought. Mr.
Yep.
Teresi,
Yes.
McDevitt,
Aye.
Ms. Picard, gosh,
Aye. We can switch seats.
Ms. Lynch.
Yes.
I vote yes. Okay, so we're suspending the rules. Next, is there any other motion that Ms. Picard was interested in making 2 seconds ago?
Okay, so I move that we accept the resignation of the superintendent of schools effective June 30th, and that we don't require
Return receipt, registered mail.
as
Okay.
written in the packet.
Yes.
Second.
Save
So
me
motion
again.
by Ms. Picard, second by Ms. Lynch. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Opposed. Yay, 5-0 again. Very nice. Okay. Any public comment? No public comment. So the next on the agenda is that we have an executive session scheduled to hear a North Andover Teachers Association grievance and discuss strategy for negotiations with the North Andover Teaching Assistants Association and Administrative Assistants Association, and we will not return to public session afterward. Is there a motion?
Emphatically so.
Before we adjourn, I wonder if there's anything people wanted to recognize or.
Oh, sorry. I can do that after we finish
Okay,
this.
that's fine.
Can I or can't? Okay, do it first. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Is there anything anybody would like to share?
I would.
Okay, clearly.
So once again, I just want to invite everybody to the NESBA competition on Saturday. We'll be hosting a number of high schools from around the area for a marching band competition. It's a huge fundraiser for our music association that supports music in schools from pre-K. I don't know if we do pre-K, but all levels of our schools. So I'm excited about that. That'll be Saturday at 5 o'clock. And I also want to give a shout-out, congratulations. We have a new Eagle Scout in North Andover, James Diaz, who was just received his Eagle Coat of Honor a week or two ago. So we have a terrifically strong history of Eagle Scouts out of North Andover. That was Troop 87. Troop 82 has them come in one after another, too.
Yeah.
And that's not usual. It's a very small percentage of Scouts that make it to that level.
Any other news to share or commentary? If anybody remembers what I said a couple minutes ago, could we have a motion on that? Only kidding. So an motion to adjourn the executive session to hear NATA grievance, et cetera.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Teresi, I think. Second
Yes.
by Ms. Lynch.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Yes.
We will not be returning. Aye.
We need a roll.
Oh, we do need a roll call. That's right. Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Teresi, Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Picard,
Yes.
Ms. Lynch.
Yes.
Ms. Hagley, yes. Thank you all. And actually, rather than adjourning, we're all set. Thank you. Rather than adjourning.